about this. Okay, so we're recording now. So Rick is here with Prof. Bruce, and we're talking about the Shaddilac model, the micro industrial model, the micro workshop model, all this good stuff that Rick is going to pioneer in his area. And what I was saying just before we started recording it is that even before COVID-19 hit, this model was working well. We've been experimenting with it for about 6 years now, and there's a real demand by gigpreneurs of small spaces where they can do something, they can make something, create something, build something. And so it was a very successful model. And then COVID-19 hit, and demand for this kind of space has dramatically increased in all the places where people that I'm coaching are implementing it, and I'm hearing from them. So I wasn't surprised to hear that more people are taking up a gig, but what did surprise me, Rick, and what I was about to say before I remembered that we should record this, is that the demand side for the people producing this stuff has dramatically increased, and that I didn't anticipate. And what I mean by that is that Canada is onshoring, and the United States as well, onshoring a lot more industrial production. So everybody knows that we can't rely on China for ventilators. We can't rely on them for personal protective equipment, PPEs, and ventilators. We've heard that. If you've been following the news at all, you will know that. But it's for everything. It's grow local, food production, production of furniture, production of clothing, textiles. I mean, all kinds of stuff that has been going overseas for decades now, many decades, in fact, that has stopped and is reversed. And so people, I have clients who make baby caps. Knitted baby caps. So when you have a new baby, you can keep their heads warm, which apparently is important. And these Etsy stores, if you know what Etsy is, have just boomed. People, every nursery, I think, across Canada, the United States, is sold out. Everybody wants to grow, carrots and beets and potatoes and radishes. And these are all things we're growing, cucumbers in their backyard. So we're going back to a situation where Canada and the United States was much more self-sufficient. So even since you and I have talked, which is only a few weeks now, this process is accelerating. So when you told me this, your heart, your head, and your gut were all in alignment on this model, and that Barb liked it too, I was excited about it. But to be honest, I'm even more excited. And just before we started recording it, I said I like it so much that I think I might do one as well in this area.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's so good to hear, Bruce. And the only thing that's happened is that because I've invested so much time and money and blood, sweat, and tears into the residential real estate market, the only thing that's happened is that I've had thoughts that, don't abandon that completely, but it never felt as right as this does.
So there is a combination that, like this is such a fast evolving space that there is a combination residential and micro workshop model that I should tell you about.
Sure.
Okay. So this is brand new, like, I mean, it just, it boggles my mind. I hope I live long enough to digest it all. It's, things, just because my coaching practice has gotten a lot bigger, and I've got a lot of smart people working on a lot of different problems and issues, my learning curve is kind of like this. It actually, sometimes my head is hurting because I'm learning almost as much from the people I coach as they do from me. Maybe I should start paying some of them. Don't tell them I said that. Don't. When you get this recording, don't put that on the internet. That would be really bad.
Yeah, like what Bruce said.
Yeah, look what I said. Yeah, I'll go broke. That wouldn't be much good then. But there is another model that has just come up that blows my mind. Maybe I've told you about it, but I don't think so. You'll tell me in a second. But I have some people that I coach who have, you know, fairly large apartment buildings, and they've noticed, and I've noticed over the last few years, that their underground parking garages, or for that matter, their surface parking lots, maybe I did tell you about this, have become increasingly vacant. My wife and I own a townhouse condo, so we've got a really nice townhouse overlooking the Ottawa River. And then we have, we're connected underground to a large tower over here. So there's our townhouse. And I think there's 3 or 4 levels of parking there. And I've noticed in that parking garage over the last, you know, decade or so that we've owned this property, it's one of our investments, is that the parking garage is emptied out. And what has happened is that as people get older, you know, my age or even older, they're driving less, and maybe they had 2 cars when they were in their 40s, 50s, you know, 30s, 40s, 50s, raising a family. And then when they become seniors, like me, maybe they only have 1 car. My wife and I only have one car now. We don't really need 2. And so we only have 1. And so half of the parking garage is empty. And so Jackie Marty, who I coach, and I discussed this a few weeks ago, and I said, isn't that interesting? And this might be new. I don't know if I shared this with you, but I booted it up just before we got on the call here. See if I can find it. Yeah, here it is here. So I asked one of the top planners I know what he thought of the idea and how the city of Ottawa would react to something like this. And this is what he wrote me back. I don't think you've seen this.
No.
All right. So, hi, Bruce. Very interesting. I think philosophically, if you were to ask me from a planning policy perspective, I wouldn't have a problem with that idea at all. The idea is of converting parking garages to workshops. From a zoning perspective, your client would need to do his or her due diligence to check if he or she would still meet parking requirements in zones or in the areas of the city where those still apply. By the way, Edmonton just eliminated all parking requirements, a very bold move from the capital of oil country. And then he went on to say a few other things. So when he wrote this back to me, I thought this model probably has legs, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of the things that Jackie is doing is she is approaching a number of landlords in this area, in the Ottawa area, who have underutilized parking garages, and offering to convert some of those parking spaces to micro workshops. And so her model is here, I think. Yeah, this is Jackie. This is what she's doing. Is she would have, I think I even have some numbers here. Let's see. Yeah. So here are the numbers, all right? So we'll just go through them. There is another possibility. Approach owners of apartment buildings to convert some of their underused parking garage spaces into micro workshops. Now imagine renting not only an apartment to somebody, but also a basement workshop where they can set up their own gig. So you have an apartment here and a workshop in the basement, where you used to have maybe a parking space. Now you have your own workshop. You would probably attract better tenants, paying more and staying longer. So if you think about it, the apartment is a liability, costs you money. The workshop is an asset because presumably you make money. You with me on that?
Yep.
So Jackie and I were working out. I said, Jackie, this is really fantastic. So I think once you have a tenant who has rented an apartment and a workshop, and it's a success, they're probably going to stay there a long time.
Right. Exactly.
So it might be a workshop where you could make wine, or you make beer, or you put together furniture, or you knit baby caps, I don't know, on a knitting machine. But it also could be somebody like an RMT, a registered massage therapist. Imagine if a client could drive in, park right next to this little quote unquote workshop, and get a registered massage therapy, or do some physiotherapy, or even for that matter, get their nails done. So that would be pretty cool. And then
Huh.
Here's the economics of it. So in the building where I am, where we have that townhouse condo, you know, parking spaces used to rent for anywhere from $50 to $100 a month, depending on demand. Today, you can get a parking space, because there's so many of them, for 30 bucks. So parking is going down because more people are, you know, older people are not driving as much, and young people tend to use Uber and Lyft and light rail. So you know, but even assuming that you can get $100 a month from a parking space rental, if you convert two parking spaces, which are 9.5 by 19 feet each, into a workshop of 361 square feet, you probably get about $700 to $800 for that a month.
Wow.
So, and you get a little bit of extra money, maybe because you would provide, if you're the landlord, you provide Wi-Fi for maybe 65 bucks, and you charge them something for power because they're going to consume power. So maybe you could get, you know, $900 to $1,000 in this area for a workshop in a major town.
Wow.
So, you know, you go to a landlord and you say to the landlord, so have you got any empty parking spaces? Tons. What are you doing with them? Well, we're trying to sell them, but maybe we used to get $100, now we're getting $30. So then you can say, well, what's better, $200 a month or $60 a month or $940 a month? It's a no-brainer. So imagine if a landlord converted 50 of his underground spaces into 25 workshops, he or she, they could make $222,000 per annum with this model. And suppose that Jackie or you takes 20% of the gross operating income, you know, for your cost of managing it and stupidizing it and leasing it, et cetera, because most landlords, they won't have a clue how to do this. So she can make about $44,000, for example, from these 25 workshops a year. If she has 5 or 6 of these buildings under management, you know, she can make over $200,000. And that is not, you know, it's she'll be working at it. There's no question about that, but it's not going to be an 80-hour work week. It's probably going to be a 30-hour work week.
Yeah, exactly.
She could probably make, you know, $200,000. The landlord has to pay to set up each workshop. That Jackie can't do that, or Rick can't do that. So Jackie can start this business with a business name, a tagline, and a website. It's very little money down. And like I said, if she could find 5 clients like this, she could make over $200,000 a year. If she, and by the way, this, you know how I've said real estate is something you can do in 1 or 2 locations. That's it.
Yeah.
Because development is, you know, like if I came to Calgary or Red Deer or Edmonton, or any town really, other than my own, to do development work, you know, to do a residential subdivision or to build an office building or something like that. Development is such a local business that at most people can only learn 1 or 2 markets. But this is different. This is really not real estate per se. It's a business model. And a parking spot workshop in Red Deer is the same as a parking shop workshop in Delaware or Arizona or Ontario. So if Jackie had 45 cities and she had, you know, 5 of these buildings in each city with 125 workshops in each city, that's a $9.9 million a year business for her.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now say it costs the landlord about $20,000 to set up each workshop, which is probably about what it would cost him. So for 25 workshops, it's $500,000. The landlord's gross operating income is $222,000 minus what he pays to Jackie, or in this case to you. So he or she, the landlord, is getting about $178,000 a year. If 34% of those revenues, Rick, are eaten up by operating expenses called OPEX, then the landlord's net operating income is about $117,000 a year. If the landlord's, so the landlord's cap rate, you remember what cap rates are?
You betcha.
Okay, so if the landlord, so what is the landlord's cap rate? If he spends $500,000 fixing up these workshops and he makes $117,000, hands-free, remember, Jackie's doing all the work or you're doing all the work, then the landlord is making 23.4% cap rate, which is friggin' insane. I mean, if you put that $500,000 in the bank, you might get 1 or 2%. If you put it into your own building, remember, you're going to attract better tenants who stay longer and pay more.
Right.
And one of the key metrics of profitability for a residential landlord, and you certainly know this, is in fact churn. If you have to turn over all your tenants every year, you're going to have at least 2 weeks of make-ready costs. You've got to clean the apartment. Maybe you have to paint it up again. You have to re-rent it. So you can miss 2 weeks every year of rent and possibly a month. So if you can if your average tenant, instead of staying, 1 or 2 years, stays 3 or 4 or 5 years, or for that matter, 6 or 7 years, because he or she has an apartment and a workshop, and you've reduced churn by a huge amount, then you have improved the landlord's profitability. That part of the profitability equation is not in there.
Right.
So now, what is the cost to hire Jackie or to hire Rick? Well, the cost is negative, because you might say, well, look, the landlord has to pay her $44,000 to manage this whole deal. But wait, it's not costing him any money, because he's making $117,000 net per year. So the cost to hire Jackie is actually a negative cost, which is a very powerful way of doing it. Now, this is the beautiful part from the landlord's point of view, especially for the big landlords, Rick. If you were to sell a 35-unit apartment building, or a 100-unit apartment building, or a 350-unit apartment building, you're probably going to get at least a 4.25% cap rate when you sell it. Do you understand that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like you and I, if you had 5 350-unit apartment buildings to sell, I could go to any number of REITs, real estate investment trusts, or publicly traded real estate firms, and I could probably get you a 4.25% cap rate. I talked about a month and a half ago to John Kumba, who's one of the best commercial appraisers I know, and he told me cap rates are now for residential apartments are now trending down, which is good for the people who own these buildings, to maybe as low as 3.25%. So look what happens to the value of the landlord's building. If he adds, or she adds, another $117,000 a year of net operating income, and if you value that at 4.25%, it means that Jackie, or Rick in this case, has added 2.7, almost $2.8 million of value to each of these buildings.
Wow.
And again,
that's so cool.
I beg your pardon?
That's so cool.
It is. It is. So basically, I put down here, and I don't know if I sent you this particular thing, but I will. In other words, Jackie, or in this case, Rick, is paying the landlord $2.7 million to hire them. So it's like me saying, I'll pay you to hire me as your coach, which I'm not saying.
Yeah.
But, I would say,
no, that makes sense.
I would say to you also, Rick, that the cost to hire somebody like me as a coach actually, I think, is a highly negative cost. Like almost everybody, now I've coached thousands of people, but almost everybody I've coached has been very successful, some amazingly so. And so the little bit of money they paid for coaching, I think it has paid off in almost every case. I've had a few failures, but not very many.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, I totally get that. And I mean, obviously, one of the first knee-jerk reactions when you're working, when you're swapping hours for dollars and then the hours stop, one of the first things you want to do is stop putting dollars out. But if you can, I totally get what you're saying, and I totally agree with it. It's a matter of, if you can spend $1 and make 6, how many times would you do that?
Exactly. I mean, and so one of the things, and by the way, I just sent you by email that little write-up. Okay, so you have it on your email. Rick? Rick?
Okay. Yeah, still here.
Okay, so I sent you, you'll get an email from me with that little write-up, okay?
You bet. Got that.
All right. So the question is, what next for you?
Oops. Was that me?
That's probably me. I'm going to turn my email off, otherwise it'll ring every few seconds.
Oh, okay. What's next? I'm good to jump right into part 3 here, Bruce, unless you see something in part 1 or 2 of the agenda.
So let's talk a little bit about part 1, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? So I just want to help you a little bit with focus, all right? And these are just some general things that I do that seem to help me with focus and might help you as well. One of the things that I think can really help a person these days is, do you use Google Calendar or Outlook?
I use Outlook, yep.
Outlook Calendar?
Yep.
So you know who the Dalai Lama is, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So he says, if you can change something, then it's worth worrying about that, because if it's something you want to act to make it better, you can worry about that. But if there's something out there that you can't change, why worry about it? You know, I mean, if you're, you know, if you're going to be hung in the morning by the Vikings, you know, they're going to string you up, you know, you might as well spend your last night with happy thoughts, because you're not going to escape your fate the next morning. Or the French, you know, with their guillotine. So the Dalai Lama is a smart man, and he says, you know, if you can't change something, don't worry about it. And I think that's really important, something that took me a long time to master. And so one of the things I do is I use Google Calendar. It's on my phone, it's on my tablet, it's on my computer. And, you know, I'm a sole practitioner, so I can't really delegate to anyone, but I delegate to Google Calendar.
Yeah.
So let's say, Rick, you asked me to do something in September. You say, Bruce, on next month, can you do this for me? I would put it in Google Calendar. It might just be a reminder. And so it doesn't have to be a meeting, it could just be a reminder. And once it's in that Google Calendar, I absolutely forget about it. I don't think about it. I don't worry about it. I realize I have to worry about it next month. And so I look at my Google Calendar every evening before I turn off my computer to see what I have to do the next day. And I also look at it in the morning, and then at least one more time during the day. And so I worry about what I have to do tomorrow, and I worry about what I have to do today, but I do not worry about what I have to do next month. I do not. And you know, there's I think a Portuguese expression, it's called manhã. Do you know what that means? Rick? Shit. Rick, did I lose you?
Yeah, no, I'm still here, but it's just chopping up right now.
So there's a Portuguese expression called manhã. Do you know what that means?
I've heard it. Manhã. Yeah,
So
I've heard it.
the Portuguese were famous years ago for, you know, saying, oh, manhã, I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow they would say manhã, they do it, so they never do it. And it was meant as an insult to the Portuguese. But I think they were not that far off being right. So I have a principle that I'm going to share with you. It's not quite on the level of the Dalai Lama. It's a Prof. Bruce principle. And it is, never do today what you can do tomorrow.
Okay, that one might be a bit of a challenge.
What I'm saying to you is this, and I live by that. If I don't have to do something today, I am not going to do it. And the reason I'm not going to do it is because I don't have to do it today. And so what that means is that today I'm going to do the important stuff.
Yes.
So I don't think the Portuguese were as far off as, white folks in America and Canada used to, look down their noses at the Portuguese. I don't think they're that far wrong. So that's really, I'm just saying, Rick, in what I think is a clever way, that you should prioritize. And if something isn't important and it's something that you don't have to do, then focus on the things you do have to do. And if you do that, your productivity is going to go way up.
Yes. Got a question for you,
Of course.
Bruce. Okay. When it just occurred to me now when you're talking that I wonder if part of the problem with my focus or lack thereof has been that my head, heart, and gut haven't been aligned. And because of that's making why shiny objects tend to distract me. Whereas I know that sometimes, wow, that's quite the calendar. I know that sometimes when I'm really zoned in on something and I really want to do it, I have no problem focusing on it. Does that sound?
We're going to talk about that. So if you look at my calendar, let's look at tomorrow. So tomorrow I have to run some credit cards and set up some more coaching assignments. I've got this young woman who wants to talk to me, so I sent her an email, but it bounced. I got to redo that. I'm talking to my bookkeeper and to my mortgage broker about a mortgage tomorrow, actually a couple of mortgages. I'm talking to a coaching client out in BC. This is a new potential client. I'm then meeting a client of mine who's interested in building some workshops, and then I'm doing some coaching with a guy out in BC. So that's my day tomorrow. And you can see that in here, I've got some things like follow up with Noel Brady, follow up with Tosh Serafini. I have to register Blue Heron Storage, which is one of our businesses, with Google My Business. So I not only have appointments in here, I also have follow-ups to do and all kinds of other things that are in this calendar. And as you know, with Outlook calendar or Google calendar, you can go out a year, you can go out 2 years. And if you were to look at my calendar, there are some things that are out there 2 years.
Okay.
And the reason I wanted to show you that is that it's a really important tool, and it will simplify your life, and it will allow you to focus on the important stuff. As you know, there's a lot of urgent stuff, but it's not important.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of important stuff that's not urgent. And so in order to be able to prioritize properly, think about mañana, and think about using Outlook calendar to delegate to. So that's some of the things that help me focus. The other thing that you can do to help make you a little bit more productive, and we'll come back to your question about passion, is setting goals for yourself. Weekly, monthly, and yearly goals is also really, really important. Every year between Christmas and New Year's, I really only take 2 weeks off a year. Next week in August, I'm taking a week off to be with my kids. And then I take a week off between Christmas and New Year's. And I don't answer emails. The phone can go to hell. I mean, people can just get by without me for a week, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
And next week is going to be another week. If you send me an email next week, you will not get an answer. But it's only 2 weeks a year, and I apologize in advance, but that's the way it is. And the one between Christmas and New Year's, after I've had a few days off and I've got a bit more perspective on the year, I do plan for the following year. I set goals. And I put those in Google Calendar too, to remind myself. Because it's no good saying, look, I am going to do $20,000 a month in sales, and so I'm going to do $240,000 in the next year of sales, whatever it is you're selling. And then the first month you sell 10,000, and the second month you sell 5,000. You say, oh, I'll make it up later. It doesn't work like that. So if I say I'm going to sell $20,000 a month, and I'm 3/4 of the way through the month and I've sold $5,000, I know I have to get my act together and do more biz dev. So setting goals, and again, using your calendar, it is really helpful to keep you on track and focused, because Google Calendar can hold you accountable better than your wife can. So I want you to encourage you to set weekly, monthly, and yearly goals and put them in your calendar, with a bunch of reminders, and then when that little it alerts you, 10 minutes, it'll say, oh shit, I was supposed to do 20,000 in sales this month and I've done 5. I better get going. All right, so that's another thing that you can do. Something else too is that once you find your why, in this case where your head, your heart, and your gut are all in alignment, and you love this workshop model thing, then everything else should be treated as a hobby.
Right.
You can have lots of hobbies. You like flying model airplanes, go fly model airplanes. You like experimenting with drones, go experiment with drones. But don't try and make a business out of drones. Your business is not drones. Yeah. Just, you say, oh, this is cool. I can fly up here. I can do all this 3D photography. I should be in the 3D photography business. No, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So one of the things to keep you on track is I want you to use the word no a lot. Okay.
My internet just crapped out there for about 10 seconds. Could you repeat that?
So I want you to use the word no a lot.
Yes.
I mean, no. It's okay. I don't care if you have 10 hobbies, making model airplanes and flying drones and helping your friends move, to a new apartment or whatever. I mean, okay, do whatever you want, but don't make businesses out of them. And the other thing is that people like you, Rick, and people like me have 2 or 3 good ideas a month. And if we run after each of them, we will never, ever, ever get anywhere. You'll start and stop, and by the time you're my age and older, you'll wonder what the hell happened.
Yeah.
Okay, the last thing I'm going to say, there's 2 more points I wanted to make on focus. If you keep really good digital files, it will help you become significantly more productive. Every single piece of paper, I wrote some notes, before we got on this call, so I will digitize those notes, and I will keep them on my computer, and it will say, Rick Redel, business model discussion, Bruce Firestone, 2020, August 5, and I'll put that in your file. And if you look at, you look at my files, I'll just show you. So here's what I have on you, Rick. So this is just you. I've got an admin file, an agenda where we keep our agendas, assignments, business model discussions, the ECQ. I'll bet you I can tell you what your ECQ test score was. Let's see what it says. 76. 76 is a heck of a score, Rick. We gamed the test. After 88, you tend to suffer from paralysis by analysis. Hence, 76 is it's better than my score. My score was 71. That's a very good score. So you could call me up 2 years from now. We could be having a discussion. I say, hey, Rick, you did awesome in that ECQ test. You go, God, Bruce has got an incredible memory. No, I don't. My computer does. This is the other half of my brain. Then here we have goals, your personal balance sheet, your pivot work, some of the readings, testimonial you gave me, what interests you most in real estate. Try and find your why. You know what WIP stands for?
WIP. Nope.
Work in progress.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, you've done a few things, and I keep it in there. Whatever sort of work you and I are working on. I even have a couple of YouTube videos, or at least one that I've done with you, and pretty soon after this call, there'll be another one.
Great.
That's you. And I'm going to tell you that if you go into the micro workshop business, you should have files like this on every single client. An offer to lease, emails that you sent back and forth, conversations that you've had with them, notes that you've jotted down. I do so much of this coaching stuff now. I mean, I'll just go into my coaching files. I mean, you know, I mean, it's just endless. That's just, these are the S's and the W's, and here are the N's and the M's and the O's and the P's and everything else. I mean, it's just really, that's just coaching. Doesn't include the realtor work I do or the consulting work I do. So, you know, I am like the god of information. And when I handle a real estate closing, lawyers who are famous for losing files, you know, they'll call me up 2 days before closing. I can't find the agreement of purchase and sale. I can't find the amendments. I can't find the waiver of all conditions. Do you have a copy of the survey? I mean, you know, and I get mad at them because, you know, I say, well, yeah, actually I sent all of that to you, you know, when the deal was done, and you have it all in file. Oh yeah, but we can't find it. You know, they're with that whiny voice, which I hate. By the way, those lawyers get fired. No, they do. They do. After a couple of times like that, I tell them, if this happens again, I'm going to make sure you get fired as a lawyer. You will not be working with me or my clients again. And so lawyers now that work with me right across Canada and the United States, they're much more careful with their files because they know I'm a bit touchy on this subject. Just because I don't mind working hard, but I just don't want to repeat things.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like I get mad at myself if I make a mistake. I like to do things and do them right. And if you try and, you know, out of 1,000 things that I do, I try and get 997 of them right the first time.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not perfect, and you're not either, I'm sure. But, you know, 1, 2, or 3 mistakes out of 1,000, I accept that in myself and in others. But if I give you 1,000 things to do, if you're a lawyer and you do, you know, 600 of them right and 400 of them wrong, that's completely unacceptable. And I will fire them. On behalf of my clients, I'll say, we're not using this law firm again. That's it, they're done. If they do it over and over again. And I'm very fair, and I don't mind mistakes because we all make them. I just don't make them a second time. That will piss me off. So those are some of the things that you could do. And the last thing that I'm going to mention on this subject, because you did add it to your agenda, Rick, is, again, this is the Dalai Lama again. He says that try and get 20 minutes a day to yourself. Just maybe not too much to ask. And he says, don't listen to music, don't watch TV. If you can, go for a walk. Don't take your phone with you. Just 20 minutes. And with no interruptions, no phone calls, no texting, you know, no emails, no music. Don't put the earbuds in. Just 20 minutes of silence, you know. And of course, I like to walk, so you know, just before we did this coaching call, I went for a 20-minute walk, and I don't bring my phone. I don't bring, you know, I don't bring my music player. I just walk and I listen to the birds and the wind and the rain or whatever. I'll walk at all conditions, all seasons, you know, and just bundle up. It was freezing in the winter. So, you know, that really helps a person. In your house, do you live in a 2-story house? What's your house like?
We got a raised bungalow.
Are there any stairs in the damn thing?
Yep, just the one downstairs.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear then. The World Health Organization did a study a few years ago, and they found that people who lived to 100 up, almost all of them had stairs in their house. And so, if I go to see a client, or I go see a doctor or dentist, whatever, and if they're up to 10 floors, I'll walk 10 floors. I won't take the elevator. I will, I go to the university and I'm walking with some of my students who are 22, and we walk across the campus. We walk up 6 flights of stairs to a classroom, and here are these 22-year-old young men and women huffing and puffing like they're old. And for me, it's nothing, you know. And so I walk, and do stairs. It's good for you.
Yeah, it's good to hear it from you, Bruce. I do that. When I was working down in Calgary, I actually used to, I was on the 28th floor, so I used to like to go up and down.
Yeah, that would be too
I
much.
didn't do it every day.
Yeah. All right. So I think the next thing that we should make sure that we do, because it's a really, really important step, is can we work together right now on the business model? I'm going to draw it up, but I want you to describe the business model. And remember, we've talked about combining a residential component with a workshop model. And by the way, that can be, it doesn't have to be a 20-story building with 150 car parking garage. One of my clients, or actually more than one of my clients, what they do is they buy a single family home, they put a basement apartment in, and they build a workshop in the backyard. And again, they rent it to people who need an apartment and a workshop, and they pay for the workshop. It's not free.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
So the model does have a residential component to it. So what we want to do, you and I, right now, is we want to create a modern era business model for Rick, but it has to come from you, not from me.
Right.
So it starts like this. What's the name of your business?
Okay. Yep. The first thing that came to my head was MMI, Mini Micro Industrial.
So say it again.
Mini Micro Industrial. MMI.
Okay. I like that. Okay. So we've got MMI, can you actually see that?
Yep. Yep. We're good.
So Mini Micro Industrial, do you have a tagline for it?
I don't.
You know what a tagline is, right?
Yes, I do. And it's funny that I don't have that, because that's kind of stuff I like doing, is come on up with that.
Well, you remember one of my clients is a young man by the name of Shadi Fahal. He's in Kitchener-Waterloo. He's a kid. I mean, he's not really a kid. He's 35, but he's a kid to me anyway. His name is Shadi. I just like his name, so we're calling his workspaces, his model, Shaddilac Workspaces.
Yeah.
And then this is the tagline that he and I came up with: making things happen.
Yeah.
So do you have a tagline in mind? I'm Prof. Bruce, making impossible possible.
Yeah. I'm drawing a complete blank, Bruce, but that's something that I would like to do for sure. I really don't know.
Okay, so I'm just putting one in here now. This is just a placeholder. So what I did was I put in MMI, the be all and end all for makers.
Okay.
Okay, it's a placeholder. So you'll come up with something like that. The be all and end all, that means the ultimate, right? The be all and end all for maker spaces, or for makers. All right? So that's just a placeholder. The be all and end all.
Yeah.
It just kind of came to me there.
Now, Bruce, do you recommend copywriting or trademarking that or whatever?
Good question. So in terms of corporate organization, I believe in the KISS model, the Keep It Simple model. In Ontario, you can register a business name for $61.
Yeah.
Incorporations are expensive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it can cost $400. If you get a lawyer to do it, might cost you $1,000. And I'm not really keen on spending $1,000 on legal fees. The other problem with corporations, Rick, is that you have to do annual filings to keep them alive.
Right.
You also have to do financial statements every year. and you have to do corporate income tax. And, you know, that's not easy to do. So I strongly recommend, but you have to make this decision. If we had a lawyer on the call here or a banker, he or she, they would say, oh, you've got to incorporate this. But I don't agree with that. But as your coach, I cannot give you legal advice because I'm not a lawyer. But as a coach and as a friend, I can tell you what I would do. And what I do is I register the name for $61 in Ontario. It probably isn't much more in Alberta. It might be less, because I don't think you have to pay HST. We do.
No, we don't.
Yeah, you pay GST. So you understand what I'm talking about. You can register as a sole proprietor.
Yep, I did that with my consulting company, actually.
Perfect. So you can register MMI, Mini Micro Industrial, and for $40 or $60. And with that master business license, you can open a bank account, and you can say, you know, Rick Redel doing business as MMI, Mini Micro Industrial. And people can write a check to you personally, or they can write a check to MMI, and the bank you can open a bank account with that. And it's perfectly proper and legal. But the beauty of it is you don't have to do annual filings. You don't have to do annual financial statements. You don't have to file a separate corporate tax return. And you just simply take all of the income and all of the expenses into your personal name.
Right.
Now again, accountants, bankers, lenders, lawyers, and other professionals will tell you, oh yeah, but you're going to pay more tax because it's tax at a personal rate. I'm not actually sure that that is true, because I'm assuming that MMI, if it was incorporated, would be a profitable company. So it's true a small business has a lower tax rate than you or I do, but at the same time, you got the money in the company. You haven't got it in your hands, right? If you're a successful company and you make $100,000 profit in that company, well, that money's in the company. It's not, you can't touch it. It's in the company. So what do you have to do? You have to dividend it out to yourself. And then guess what? You pay tax on that. So there's double taxation. The company pays some tax and then you pay some tax. So I'm not sure that on the personal side, you're paying all that much more. And in the first few years of the business, it may not matter because you might not make that much money.
Yeah.
And then when you look at the cost of keeping that company alive and hiring an accountant, doing the financial statements, hiring a lawyer to do the legal filings every year, and then doing the income tax every year, the cost of that is not insignificant. So to me, I prefer to keep it, I would just do it that way. I would register MMI, Mini Micro Industrial, and then just take all the income and all the expenses into your name. And if you have to pay an extra couple of $1,000s in income tax, you probably saved $5,000 or $6,000 in legal and accounting fees.
Right, right.
So then the next thing that the lawyer would tell you, and the banker and the accountant would, well, yeah, but if you have a corporation, you know, you're protected, you know, you've got some limited liability. That is more BS in my opinion. This is just an opinion, and you have to make up your own mind. But I think it is BS, because let's say somebody comes to one of your micro workshops, and they sprain their ankle, and they sue the company. Oh well, you didn't, you were negligent. But they'll also find out who the members of the board of directors are. It might just be you, and they'll sue you personally. They will, and you'll say, oh no, but I have a company, I'm protected. They still sue you personally. You still have to hire a lawyer for the company and for yourself. So plus on top of that, if you ever hire any employees and you don't pay the income source deductions, you as a director of a corporation are responsible for that personally. There's no protection for that. If you don't pay, if your company doesn't pay its GST or its income tax, well, I'm not sure about income tax, but I know with GST remissions and HST that they can pierce the corporate veil and attach that to the individual directors. So even that limited liability has been chipped away. Or for example, what happens if somebody spills kerosene in one of your workshops? Maybe they have some kerosene and there's an environmental contamination. in many provinces and states. Again, environmental contamination can pierce the corporate veil. You're going to be held responsible anyway. That's why you have insurance. So I believe I would rather pay $61 to register a name and a business name in Ontario, and take the income into my own name and my wife's name, my kids' names now that they're adults, and pay whatever taxes they are. I used to have about 30 different companies, and I killed every one of them. I have one left. I killed them all.
Once?
Well, it took me a few years. I mean, by the way, putting a company out of its misery takes a long time, and it's hard to do. So I would never go back there. I'm just going to keep my life simple. And I think complexity is the enemy of success, Rick. I want you to remember that. Maybe write that down. Complexity is the enemy of success. And your business model, when we finish it today, I hope is going to be very simple. And I want your life to be simple. I want to get you to the point where you have, a 30-hour work week instead of an 80-hour work week. I don't mind if you work 80 hours as long as the other 50 you're having fun. But in terms of working for a living, maybe we could get you down to 30. So those are all the things that I think of. Now, in terms of trademarks are actually pretty useful. But there's another way that you can protect yourself, and it's it costs you zero money. You probably see this everywhere. You may not be able to read it, but can you read my handwriting there?
Yeah, you betcha. Yeah.
So if you put at the bottom of your web page, or next to your tagline, copyright Rick Redel, Alberta, Canada 2020, automatically you're registered with the national copyright rules and regulations. It's free, and it's done so that authors, who many of them don't have very much money, can protect their work, for virtually no cost. So if you add to your website or to your flyers, your brochures, your business card, say you have a wonderful tagline. Like I really like Shaddy's tagline, Shaddilac Workspaces, making things happen. If he adds copyright Shaddy Fahal, Kitchener-Waterloo, Canada, 2020, there is a protection for that. Now, you can apply for a trademark for it, and that'll probably cost you between $1,500 and $2,500. But I'd rather you keep that money right now and just copyright everything you do.
Right. So how does then that get registered? Is it?
You don't even have to register. It just means if somebody steals Shaddy's tagline, like if you were to steal it, all Shaddy has to do is say, look, I copyrighted this back in 2020 in June. Here, it's on my website in 2020 June. And then Rick Redel shows up with the same tagline in August of 2020, 2 months later. So you would get into trouble for that.
Right. Okay.
You would be infringing on his copyright, and he would have the right then to claim damages.
Right.
So you don't have to do a damn thing. You just put it on your website, put it on your stuff. You've got a lot, it's all timestamped, right? Your website is timestamped, right?
Yeah.
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 So once you do that, don't worry about it. That's my opinion. Now, it would be different. Yeah. Like, let's say you and I ran IBM.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, well, we have to patent stuff, and we have to trademark stuff, and we have to, and we don't mind spending hundreds, tens of millions of dollars in legal fees on patents, utility patents, design patents, trademarks, and, all kinds of other things to protect the intellectual property. But even those very big companies like IBM and Apple and Huawei and all these other companies, they're actually spending that money not to protect their intellectual property. That's not really why they do it. Did you know that?
No.
They do it because it gives them the ability, when they get sued by other big companies for patent infringement, it gives them the opportunity to countersue them and say, oh, well, look, you are infringing on 20 of our patents, so we're suing you too. So, and this happened between Apple and Samsung. You know, Apple and Samsung are competitors, but they also cooperate. And so I think Apple sued Samsung because a lot of the stuff that you see in the Samsung phones, the Galaxy phones, was probably copied from Apple and probably infringes on their intellectual property. So Apple sued them. Well, Samsung then looked through their portfolio of 10,000 friggin' patents and said there must be some here that Apple is infringing on of ours, and then they countersued. And then that goes on for about 5 or 6 or 7 years. They both spend millions of dollars. It's all about dick size, if you understand what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And then after 5 or 6 or 7 years, guess what they do? They say, okay, guess what? You can use our patents if we can use your patents, and let's make peace. It is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But all these big technology companies and all these huge companies, that's what they do. And it's completely irrational in my mind. Like if I were head of Apple, you know, I don't think I would want to spend, you know, $400 or $500 million a year on litigation. But that's what they do. And it's such a, do you know that the United States has about 3 or 4% of the world's population and 2/3 of all attorneys?
Holy, wow.
So in the United States, if you take this model into the United States, we would have a different discussion. Okay, so if you ever do, you know, take MMI into the U.S., that's a different kettle of fish. There, you need an attorney who checks everything you do, because in the United States, people will sue you because they don't like the way you part your hair. It's incredible. Think about that. 66% of the world's total supply of attorneys live and work in the United States, and they have 3 or 4% of the world's population. Everybody sues everybody. If you have a neighbor in the U.S. and you don't like the way he puts his garbage cans out the night before, you sue him. You know, if you and I were neighbors and the skunks were getting into your garbage, I'd come over and say, Rick, hey, listen, I'll tell you what, I don't mind coming over to your place and pulling the garbage cans out of your little shed there in the morning. I know you have to get up early, but if you put them out the night before, the skunks are getting in them and it's not good. So I'll do that for you. And you would say, oh, that's so nice of you. I really appreciate it. And it takes me, what, 5 minutes? So, but in the United States, they would sue each other. No, I mean, you think I'm kidding. I am not kidding. So if you do expand MOI to the States, you have to have a very good attorney, and everything has to be, you know, so we would have a company for sure. You would incorporate, absolutely. And every aspect of your business would be reviewed by an attorney. There's no going around that in the United States. It is an atrocious place to do business. They're extremely aggressive. And, you know, in Canada, as you know, if you and I ever got into an argument, which would never happen, the worst that would ever happen would be we might exchange a few harsh words. In the United States, they get the pistols out and they start blasting each other.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's a bright future, isn't it?
Well, you know, I think the end of the American empire is in sight. I don't think it'd be very long before China eclipses the United States as the #1 world economy. I just, you know, I wouldn't have expected it, but you can see what's happened in the United States. It is becoming a third world country. Okay, let's go back to your business model. Okay, so we got MMI. Now, what is the offering? What does MMI do?
Workspace, affordable workspace.
Say it again, sorry.
Affordable, convenient, custom workspace.
Okay.
Localized or local.
Yeah. I took out the word custom.
Okay, why?
Because what I want pretty much a standard product.
Okay. Yeah,
remember how I said if you customize it, then you don't have an international business model, you just have another development business.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
So it's affordable, convenient, local workspaces. Love that. Okay. Now, are you going to buy your own building, cut it up? Are you going to manage third-party buildings, whether it's you find somebody who has an empty industrial building and go in there and do the third-party hosting for them, or find somebody with, you know, an apartment building with parking garage and do the same thing? What is your model? Are you going to own this first piece of real estate that you do, or are you going to just offer property management services?
Well, in the long run vision is to own the properties.
So, but we're talking about the very first one.
If I'm managing my own or managing someone else's, I'd rather manage my own.
I agree with that. But the question is, did you do some of that homework that I asked you to do to look around and see what was available?
I haven't been there yet, no.
Do you remember me asking you that?
Oh, yes, back, yeah.
All right, so there is some homework for you to do. It's a theoretical homework. Do you remember the building in Tamworth that I showed you, what Carolyn Butts and Hans Honegger did there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember that they were able to find a 20,000 square foot old garage that they bought for 25,000 bucks? Do you remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, good. So what I was hoping you could find, you know, is, let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, here it is. I'll share it with you again. What I was hoping you could do is what Carolyn and Hans did. This is in a tiny town of Tamworth, about 2 hours from Toronto. And this is a 20,000 square foot building. You know, you can see what it looks like, right? It was in pretty bad shape. And this is Carolyn and Hans, and they're not afraid of rolling up their sleeves and getting, so it's 20,000 square feet. You can see it says lube here and service here. So it's an old, you know, garage, and they bought it for 20,000 bucks. And they fix it up. Let me see if I can, yeah. So, yeah, so here's what it looks like today. Can you see the picture?
Yeah.
And so you could go in there and they've cut it up, this 20,000 square foot building into micro workshops. So, and there is a residential component here. Do you remember that as well?
Not the residential part, no.
All right. So what they did is they went into the town of Tamworth and they bought a bunch of old homes, which they renovated as medium-term rentals. And,
okay, yes.
And not far away is what they now call, their business is called Bon Echo, which is a beautiful name. So Bon Echo now owns a number of homes in this tiny town of Tamworth, only 7,500 people. How many people in your town?
About the same, about 7, 10, somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be Edmonton or Calgary. It could be, or Red Deer, but it has to be an inexpensive building that you can buy and retrofit. And there's no reason why you can't buy a couple of buildings that are homes that are not far away. And again, you could offer, you know, hey, here's an apartment and here's a workshop.
Right.
Right. So,
yeah.
So what I'm really asking you is, what direction are you going to go in to start? Because you know, the longest journey is the one where you never take the first step.
Right. Well, it seems like the quickest way, well, it depends if you find something or not. I guess the quickest way would be to manage a project, go to some existing property manager and do exactly what you said.
Well, I just don't know what the best alternative is. And that's why I think what you should do is you should do the property search.
Right, okay.
So what you need to do is you need to identify which town you want to, you know, locate in.
Yeah.
Where the first town is. You should look at, you know, property available. And the kind of property that you're looking for is industrial and maybe residential as well. All right. All right. So we just don't know the right answer yet. So on this side of the model, you've got to decide which town that you're going to look at.
Right.
And you're going to look at what properties available, both on the industrial side and the residential side. Because what you might do is you might buy something like like Carolyn and Hans did, you know, an old industrial building that's empty, nobody else wants it. And you might find a few, or at least one residential home that's close to that, where you could offer, you know, some apartments here and some micro suites here. Okay, that's one
Right.
model. So
Yeah.
I want you to look at that. Then the other thing that you could do is you could look for some third-party work. Okay, so, and the third-party work would be two different, from what I'm thinking now, is two different sectors. So again, and I'm going to digitize this once we finish. So the other thing that you could look for is some third-party work. So, and there's two different sectors. You could look for somebody who owns an industrial building who's having trouble leasing it, and you could go to him or her, them, and say, look, I'm working on this model. Let me take this $15,000 of, sorry, 15,000 square feet of empty space. I'm going to cut it up into micro workshops. I'm going to rent it for you. I'm going to manage all of that, and you're going to be really happy. Or you find some people with parking garages that are underutilized, and you're going to convert those to workshops and manage those. So there's the third-party model here, and there's Rick as the owner here. And I don't think right now we know which is the right one. And the right one is whoever says yes first.
Well, that's kind of where I was going. Versus I was having trouble picking one, because I was thinking, well, I can look for both at once.
Correct. And what I don't want you to do is do what the Nazis did in World War II and fight on two fronts. That was a bad plan. You know, thank God they made that mistake. But the moment that Mr. Adolf Hitler launched his invasion of Russia, called Operation Barbarossa, that was the end of the German Empire, because he was fighting now on two fronts. And if you know anything about being a general in war, as soon as you open up a second front, you're doomed. You're finished. And Napoleon did exactly the same thing. It killed him. He fought the British at Waterloo, and then he went into Russia. Like, I mean, Hitler should have learned from Napoleon. Invading Russia is really a bad idea, especially since those Russians are willing to die in the tens of millions of people for their motherland. Did you ever watch that film, Enemies at the Gate?
I've seen clips of it.
Oh my God. It's about the Battle of Stalingrad.
Oh yeah.
And what the Russian, you know, everybody, you know, if you listen to American propaganda, they won the Second World War. They not even close. It was the Russians who did it. They killed millions of Germans, you know, in and around Stalingrad and Moscow and St. Petersburg, which was then called Leningrad. And so this is just a way of me saying to you, you know, I served 3 years in the militia, so I pretend I know something about it. But you know, for you, I don't want you to if you found somebody who says, look, Rick, I'm going to hire you to manage my 20,000 square feet of industrial space, that once you get a yes, that's it. You're going to focus on that, make that a huge success, and then you and I will decide what the next step is. But the first step has to work. You're never going to have a second project if the first one that fails. Yeah. So if you found
I like that. Whoever says yes first.
Whoever says yes.
I like that.
Yeah, it's like when you were trying to get a girl. When you were a young man, you wanted to find a girlfriend.
Allows me to keep my.
But you remember when you were a young fella and you wanted to find a girlfriend? The first one who said yes, she was the best. Right?
Yeah. Well,
after that, you figured out you could have more than one, right? But the first one that said yes, that was pretty important. So same thing here. So I would do that. But the first thing I would do, even before you do anything else, is I would do a little bit of low cost work on your website. You know, do you have somebody who can help you with a website?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So probably the first thing I would do is I would register the business name. I would come up with a tagline, and I would copyright that, and I would build a website. And you know, I would not spend more than $500 on that.
Okay, yeah.
And so one of the things that you should do is you should check, and we're going to do that right now, that you need to buy 3 domain names. You need the .ca, the .com, and the .org.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's go and look. Do you know the website GoDaddy?
That I've used them. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I've used others as well, but let's look at that, and let's see what's available for Mini Micro Industrial. Did I spell it right? Mini Micro Industrial. Yep, that looks right.
Yeah.
So let's see what they say. Mini Micro Industrial is available for $1 per month, $12 a year. It does say mini, micro, and mini are high value keywords. That's good. Good for you. I didn't know that. So you can get mini micro industrial. Mini micro. Holy shit! Hold on. Mini micro industrial is available. Mini. Oh, I don't like this. All this. Let me go to Rebel. Rebel has a better interface. I like it better. Let's do it again. Go back here. Seal this. Put it in here. I think that this is a better search tool. This is a local Ottawa firm. All right. So mini micro industrial.ca is available. .com is available, and .org is available. The reason you want the .ca is you want to, at least in Canada, you want to be branded .ca for Canada. In the United States, you want to be, you know, branded .com, and you want to own the .org, because at some point in your business cycle, if you're success, so I'm going to just show you. So up here, so this is the business model. So this is you. These are your products. These are your, you know, this is your supply chain. And up here is a little sort of arrow going this way. That's where your marketing is. And up there also is where your .org will eventually go. So it'll look something like that. Can you see right at the top, there's a .org up there?
Yeah.
So at some point, you may have an MMI, mini micro industrial.org domain that is its own, and you use that for give back to the community. Like if you're a successful business, and it can have its own revenue sources. You can have, you know, mini micro industrial.org golf tournaments. You know, you can raise money for it, and it can do good work. For example, you know, you will be perfectly set up to help, for example, new immigrants to the United States or Canada start their own businesses. If you had, say, 45 cities and you had 25, you had 100 micro workshops in every city, you'd have 4,500 workshops across Canada and the United States, and you could lease some of those to your .org, and they could provide them pro bono to people who are recent immigrants, you know, who have skills. You know, maybe a woman has come from India and she's a seamstress. Okay, you can set up your tailoring business, your dressmaking business in one of our workshops, and we won't charge you any rent for a year.
Huh.
Do you understand that?
That's cool. I like it.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's something. It's not something that I invented. Here in Ottawa, we have a man by the name of Tony Greco. He's like a fitness guru. Like, he's quite well known, and he runs a company called Greco Lean and Fit. So if you need to get in shape, you go and get some training by Tony. He'll whip you into shape. And no matter what your age, even if you're an old dude, he'll whip you into shape. Not the same as he would with a 30-year-old, but still. But he has a foundation called the Greco Foundation to Fight Obesity in Children. Like, we have an epidemic in Canada, the United States, of fat kids, right? It's atrocious. Like, I don't have, my kids are all built like this, but that's because they we didn't let them sit there in front of the TV eating chips all day. We did not. They were out on the outdoor rink, and played soccer. They were involved in dance and hockey. I mean, my kids were really busy, and as young adults, they're all built like this.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of fat kids, and so you can take your children to the Greco Foundation to Fight Obesity in Children, and you can enroll little Susie or little Johnny in the program free. And Greco, the foundation will work with those children to get them on the right diet, the right amount of exercise, and because if you don't catch that early, those kids are doomed to a terrible life. Fat kids they get picked on, and they can't find a girlfriend or a boyfriend. It's just awful, and you can't find a job. Nobody wants to hire a fat person, unfortunately. So if you think about it, so Tony has the foundation, and they do really good work, and it has its own revenue sources. They do all kinds of really cool stuff. They have the annual golf tournament. I'm a terrible golfer, but I'll go and I'll pay a few $100 to help out the foundation. They do other things to raise money. They have sponsors. But if you enroll your kids there, maybe you as an adult say, geez, I could be a little fitter too. Then you go to the for-profit business and you sign up. So even though it's meant well, it is part of the marketing for the for-profit. Do you understand? It does work. Yeah. So ultimately, this part here will be its own little function, but it will actually help this too. So it's not totally selfless. All right. So like I said, I'm going to send this to you after we finish. So sponsors, you're going to have sponsors there, and you're going to have events like a golf tournament. Do you golf?
I pretend, yeah.
I'm horrible at that. I was a good hockey player, Rick, but golf is way harder. I could never really get the hang of it.
Yeah, it's what I find I go off the rails is my concentration.
Well, that's the focus thing.
Yep. Yeah, I wonder what the next hole looks like.
All right. Okay. So we're getting there. All right. So we have affordable, convenient workspaces, local. I'm also going to add as a possibility, just as a possibility, with a residential apartment. All right. So it may be, and I think it might be very useful to combine your love for residential and your love for these workspaces into one model. I know that works.
Okay.
Right? And it's very simple to do, and I'm quite sure that it's a logical thing to do, and it could be both long-term rental and medium-term rental. All right. So let's say, for example, I come along and I say, look, I need an apartment, Rick, and could I have one of your workspaces to run my coaching practice? And you say, sure. So I rent both an apartment from you and one of your workspaces to run my coaching practice. Great. And that would be a long-term rental, right? So what you would do there is you do 2-year leases. So on the long-term rental side, both for the workshops and also for the apartments, try and get 2-year leases. So let's imagine for the just maybe as a fantasy, but still interesting. Let's say you had 45,000 workshops and you had 45,000 apartments. All right, just assume. So now you have 90 things to rent. If you can rent a workshop and an apartment, that 90,000 has become 45,000 things to rent because you're doing it as a bundle. And if you do all of those for 2 years, you've reduced it to 22,500 rentals a year as opposed to 90,000.
Yeah, makes sense.
So
Yeah.
2-year leases with workshop and apartment implies 1/4 of the workload. Because the idea is to do 2 things. Do you remember what CMRR stands for? CMRR?
Oh, I don't remember. I've seen it. I can see it.
Yeah. I'm putting you on the spot. Sorry. It's committed monthly recurring revenues.
Right.
That is the holy grail of business. But the other part of committed monthly recurring revenues is the KISS principle. You remember what that is, right?
Yep.
Keep it simple. And the 4-hour work day. You know, do you remember Tim Ferriss wrote the 4-hour work week?
Yeah, I've got his book. Yeah.
That book is an atrocious piece of garbage. It really is. And when he wrote that, he did not do people any favors because entrepreneurs are always saying, well, yeah, I want to be like Tim Ferriss and only have to work 4 hours a week. I'll bet you Tim Ferriss works 80 hours a week.
Yeah. Well, do you really think that he meant 4 hours a week, or was he just trying to tell people that you can work smarter if you want?
Well, okay, I'll accept that. You're just being nice. But I'm not nice, and I don't mind calling him out on it. But I do have a few clients who have 4-hour work days. I do. Now, I don't really want a 4-hour work day. I don't, because I like working. And if I wasn't coaching, what the hell would I do? I'm not going to watch TV all day, although I wouldn't mind watching a bit more hockey. I'm enjoying the hockey. But you know, I don't really, you know, I love what I do. So I do it because I love it. And I work for a living, sure. But, you know, but I do have clients who really enjoy a 4-hour workday. You know, one of my clients is in the mini storage business, very successful. He's really doing mini contractor yards now. And he works 4 hours a day, but he has other interests. He's an adventurer. He'll go to Norway and he'll kiteboard across the north of Norway in the middle of winter. You know, he'll have the sail and he'll be on a snowboard and he'll go on a race that's like 400 or 500 kilometers at -40. That doesn't sound like fun to me. But he's an adventurer, so it's perfect for him. He loves that life. He'll spend 4 hours in the gym. You know, I'll spend 45 minutes or an hour, and that's enough for me. You know, but that's his lifestyle, and he loves it, and he loves his business too, and he's very good at it. But he is. So what I wanted to give you is the opportunity to have the 4-hour workday. I'm not saying you have to do that, but eventually that you might want to do that. It wouldn't suit me, but it might suit you, and it certainly suits Peter. And I have another client by the name of Kyle, and it suits him as well. You know, he spends the rest of his time, you know, smoking weed, which he likes to do. I mean, I don't care. He's an American, so I can't say any more about it because in America, it's still a crime, at least federally. You know, and that won't change. If Mr. Trump gets reelected, there's no hope to change that. But so to do that, if you can lease things for 2 years or longer, you know, I think that will really reduce your workload. And if you can lease them as a bundle, you can reduce your workload by, you know, by 3/4.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Now, the other thing that many of my clients do is that they put most of their workshops, and if they have a residential component, the apartments, into the long-term rental market. But they usually keep anywhere from 10 to 15% of those units for the medium-term rental market.
Okay.
And because they can get a higher rate for it. So it's like having your cake and eating it too.
Yeah.
So what they'll do is they'll take an apartment and they'll furnish it, and they'll put it on Airbnb or vacation rental by owner or Kijiji or Craigslist, but it will only be for rent for 30, 60, 90, or 180 days. They won't do like the 3-day rental. Right? That 3-day rentals on Airbnb, you might as well shoot yourself. The amount of work it takes, Rick, is ridiculous.
Yeah, I couldn't handle that.
Oh, me neither. But the medium-term rental market, which the people in Tamworth do a lot of, is a great market. There's lots of people, technology companies and others, who will send out their employees who are working on special projects, and they'll say, Rick, if you're working at a tech company, take Firestone and 4 other people, go to Tamworth. I don't want to see you for 3 months. You can rent one of their workshops in Bon Echo Station, and you can rent some nice units in their apartments nearby. And you guys just go away, and I need you to work on this, the product management for this new product that we're going to release in the spring. And 3 months and 6 months, you just go. And those guys pay big rents. So that's the medium-term rental market. So you might, if you had 25 apartments and you had 25 workshops to rent, you might put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them into the medium-term rental market just to get a little bit higher rents. But it's more work, but it's
right. Question for you, Bruce.
Money. Yep.
Right. When I say industrial, and I haven't thought about it in more depth, but I've always just thought, oh, industrial, okay, workshops, carpenters, get your hands dirty type of guy, plumbers, guys that are going to build stuff. What when you say industrial, what do you mean? Because you're talking about now tech guys that may need to brainstorm in a clean office.
Well, so, you know what? Bon Echo, they'll have, painters, artists, writers, tech guys, sculptors, prototypers, all kinds of people, including people who are hammering and sawing. So the workshops are not just for guys who like to get their hands dirty, Rick. Look, okay. People will show up and they'll say, look, I've got and the tech guys, they love the industrial space. You know that.
Okay.
So the tech guys will go into one of those workshops that have been, they got paint on the floor and it's an industrial space. It's true, but they'll just have whiteboards all around, and they'll have tables, and they'll have their computers in there, and they will be a team, and they'll use industrial space. Trust me on that. I've leased it.
No, I do.
Dozens and dozens of these workshops. When we started experimenting with this model, Rick, I did the leasing myself. I was leasing 350 and 400 square foot spaces, and my broker of record, my partner Ralph Shaw, got mad at me. He said, "Bruce, you're renting a 400 square foot space for like $700 or $800 a month. You're getting a commission out of it for Century 21 of like a cup of coffee at McCafe." And I said, "Yeah, but we're experimenting, and you cannot experiment with a model, without actually doing it." So when you have these workshops for lease, don't be surprised if a registered massage therapist shows up and says, "Hey, can I have one?"
Okay, and that's precisely the reason I asked that, Bruce, because when I'm visualizing in a property, I'm going, okay, who would I put in here, or who would want this? Because I was just kind of assuming that it would kind of all be one type of guy or all the other type of guy. But it's all mixed up, is it? Or potentially?
Well, that has been my experience.
Okay.
That has been my experience. That it's just a wonderful space because it's like being agnostic. It means that you believe in God, but you could be a Hindu one day and a Muslim the next day and a Christian the day after and a Buddhist the day after that. Whatever, agnostic, right?
Yep.
I mean, you're going to have every religion.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be like I said, it could be a lady who comes from India and she rents one of these and she has a bunch of other ladies in there with sewing machines, and knitting machines. You don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making any sense to you, but this is what has happened.
No, it is.
And when you go in there and you see all these different people, you know, you've got a sculptor there, and then you've got an artist there, and then you've got somebody who literally is a tailor, and then somebody is a bunch of tech guys, and then somebody else who's in one of the places that I rented, you know, we have an Irish carpenter, we have a lathe operator, we have a tech prototyper, we have a used car guy in there, we have a couple of artists in there. One artist I remember in particular, she makes furniture out of wood pallets. I didn't even know it was a thing. And what's really beautiful about her model is all of her inputs are free.
Right.
Did you know that you can go to every transportation company in Calgary or Edmonton or Red Deer or any of the towns around you, and in the back they will have piles of wood pallets, so they just wait for the winter to come and they burn them. Yeah. Because they can't get rid of them. And so this lady that I rented one of these workshops to, she said, "I'm an artist." "Oh, what kind of art?" "I make furniture out of wood pallets." I said, "Oh, okay." And then she tells me the story. Her husband was kicking her out because the business had taken over their house. Their garage was full of wood pallets. Their backyard, their living room. And she said, "I just can't stay at home anymore." I said, "Yeah, it's that or divorce." And she laughed. She said, "Yeah, I know." And then she told me that she has a truck, and she has regulars that she goes to, and she said goes there. And the first time she showed up, they would ask her, "How much are you going to charge us to take them away?" And she said, "No, I'll take them away for free." They said, "You'll do it for free? Great. Take as many as you can," right? Because they stack up and you can't do anything with them. So it would be like going to McDonald's and volunteering to eat their meals for free. You know, that would be pretty good. Right? You know, or going to a nice restaurant and saying, "Listen, you know, I guess if you're a food critic, you get free meals." So I do think that MMI will have a very diverse client base.
Yeah.
And if you want, you can combine that with a residential model. That's up to you. So, all right. So we're starting to get the hang of this thing. Now, there's one more part of your model that is up here. This is called the brain. Okay. And what the brain does is it matches your clients to your suppliers. In other words, somebody comes along, she's an artist, and she wants a workshop and an apartment. So your brain matches her needs up with what your availability is. At the start, the brain is just, at the start of this business, the brain is just you, Rick.
Right.
Okay. But if you had 45,000 workshops across North America and 45,000 apartments, that brain has to be automated.
Yeah.
Right. There's no way somebody can call you up in Tallahassee, Florida and say, "Hey, Rick, do you have any availability of apartments and workshops for me? I'm in Tallahassee." You know, there's no way. I mean, it has to be automated, right? And there's lots of systems that can do that. When you only have 25 or 50 workshops, you know, it's no problem. They call up, "Oh yeah, I got an apartment over here and I got a workshop over there, and these are the rates. What do you think?" So your brain is going to run 25 or 50 of these. But probably when you get to 100 of these workshops and maybe another 100 apartments, there's no way. You're going to have to pay for you know, to have a system installed on your website which automates this process.
Right.
Once it gets to a certain number, I don't know what that number is, but that's where you have to go. So so you can check out the domains. I think you could get the .ca, the .com, and the .org. It won't cost you much. And we've kind of laid out a bit of a program for you. Something else that I want you to do and I'm going to send this to you. I'll just share this with you. This is a little bit more complicated. There's a thing called critical path methodology. Do you know what that is?
I think I could grasp it fairly quick, but I can't explain it.
So it was a methodology that was developed by a bunch of American and English scientists, statisticians, and others, time management people, who were involved in the Manhattan Project to create atomic weapons. This was in World War II. It was in World War II. And they had, I think, 2,000 or 3,000 companies working on this project, and I think about 300 or 400,000 people. And just the way I described, it's impossible once you get to 100 or 200 or 300 things to do it all mentally, by trying to remember stuff. You need a system. Critical path methodology was something they developed in World War II to control a complicated process. The good news is that that today there's free software that you can get that'll allow you to set up a critical path schedule. And what it does is it tells you what you have to do, when you have to do it, and what comes first and what comes second, and how long the project is going to take to complete. And I'm going to say, this is a training that I did. It's about 33 minutes or almost 34 minutes. And I'm going to send it to you. I'd like you to actually, do the training. And like I said, there's some really great free software. I mean, I have critical path methodology software, but it's really expensive. But there's free stuff out there that would be all you would need, Rick. But this is the way to organize yourself, okay? In terms of making sure that you can get your project done on time.
Perfect.
Let me show you an example, okay? This is something I did for Emily Murphy Nonprofit Housing Corporation. They're doing a new building, okay? And so what it is you can see that they have about 43 or 44 tasks that they have to do. So they hired a bunch of advisors, they selected their site, they bought the site, they do some due diligence, they have to have a real estate lawyer, they have to have a legal review of the agreement, they have to hire a developer, an architect, a general contractor, a project manager, they have to put the finance together, they have to develop a functional program, they have to develop a concept plan. There's all kinds of things they have to do. I'm going to send you this as well. And you can see these are the estimate of how many days each of these tasks will take, okay? 5 days, 30 days, 75 days, 45 days, etc. And then it shows when it starts and when it ends. And then over here, who's doing what. This column is a little bit more difficult. This column, for example, it says, for example, let's look at this. It says that they can't, these are what are called predecessors. So they cannot develop their functional program until they have done tasks 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if you look at that, they can't start putting their functional program together until they've got their group of advisors, that they've got their site selected, they've got their the property tied up, and they've done some due diligence on it. So they should do their functional program after they've tied up the site. Now, if we go all the way to the bottom, if you did all of these tasks linearly, it would take them 2,499 days, almost 7 years to get this project finished. However, if you do some of those tasks in parallel, you can cut that by a factor of 2 down to 3.25 years. The other thing that critical path methodology does for you is it identifies which of those tasks are critical. And what a critical task is any task that is delayed by 1 day, 1 week, 1 month will delay the whole project by 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month. There are
Okay.
some tasks that have what's called slack in them. In other words, some tasks that you have, if they're late by a week or 2 weeks, it doesn't affect the end date of the project. But it does flag, it gives you this as part of your output, it does flag which of the tasks are critical, and those are the ones you have to pay the most attention to.
Okay.
Because if there's any delay, if your architect says, don't worry, Rick, I'll have those working drawings for you by a certain date, so you can put it out to tender, and they're late by a month in delivering those working drawings, I can tell you right now, that's a critical task. That's going to screw up the whole schedule.
Right.
So when
Okay.
you do a project, and this is for a construction project, but it can also be for a business startup like yours.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to send you this spreadsheet right now, so you have it. Let me just send you this. And I'd like you to take a stab at this, okay? You don't have to
Yeah.
work it all out, but I want you to you know, I'm coaching you, I'm not gonna do it for you. You gotta do it for yourself. But what I want you to do is I want you to take a stab at critical path methodology. And this is for nonprofit organization. So I did, you know, I was hired as a consultant, not as coach here. So I actually did this for them. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to just make sure you get a copy of that. So that's on your email right now. All right. So, and then after we finish, I will digitize this highly complicated business model and I will send it to you.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Let's have a look. Were there any other questions you wanted to go over today?
Let me see. Oh, do you have any disagreements with anything in part one,
Well, there were a couple
based on
things.
what you know about me?
There were a couple of things that I wanted to ask you about, and that is, do you want to find some investors to help you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
And the reason I bring that up is, I think you know Dave Dubo, right?
I do. Yeah,
Have you done any of his training?
I've taken his course.
Yeah. And how
Yeah,
did you
yeah, I did.
how
You
did you
bet.
find it?
I think the basic idea was good. Yeah, I guess just building something out or a system that represents who I am.
So I really like Dave Dubo, and I have a lot of respect for him, but I have a different opinion about how to find investors.
Okay.
I really am very fond of Dave, and I support his way of doing things. It's probably right for him. But number one, I don't agree with Dave that the best place to find investors is family and friends.
I struggled with that one.
So
Yeah.
I don't agree with that approach. To me, that's the worst place to find investors. You know, Rick, I'm a pretty good coach.
That's pretty much what I started off with. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm a pretty good coach. I'm actually a really good coach.
Yes, you are.
I am. But I have 5 kids, and to my 5 kids, I'm just dad.
Uh-huh.
And you know, they're father deaf.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm a smart enough guy, and to my wife, I'm just her husband. I'm not some, you know, mythical, you know, entrepreneur who has an international reputation. I'm just the guy who loves her, and hopefully she loves me. But you know, you've heard about being, you know, mother deaf, father deaf, wife deaf, husband deaf. I think there's a lot of truth to that, and so if you picture friends and family, that's just Rick Redel or Bruce Varsel, just a guy, you know. But if you pitch other people on this model, they're going to go, "Wow, man, I really like this model." So what I'm going to send you is I have, I guess, about a 24-page how to find investors, which is my approach. It's different from Dave's.
Sure.
And I want you to,
Yeah.
I want you to think about it, read it. It's 24 pages, so it's a bit long. But let me tell you where I think the best place to find investors. And it's surprisingly easy. My friend and client who runs a mini storage business, it's a national business, um, wants to expand, and he needs some investor money. And he came to see me, and he had done Dave Dubo's course too. He's based in Vancouver.
Okay.
And he said, you know, I'm really not comfortable hitting up my friends and family for money. And I said, you and I are on the same wavelength. He said, well, what do you think I should do? And I said, well, you already know all the investors that you need to know. You have all the money that you'll ever want, and they're all willing to give you money. You just don't know it. He says, you're talking about my friends and family? I said, no, I'm talking about your customers. I said, how many people have been customers of yours over the last 5 or 6 years? He said, I don't know. Well, I said, that's your first clue, Sherlock, that you don't know what you're doing. You know, I can be sometimes a little bit too frank, maybe. You know, these are customers and clients of mine, and they become friends. I hope you and I will become friends. But you know, I'll call a spade when I see it. And I said to him, I'll call him Bill. That's not his real name. I said, Bill, that's your fault. So what I said to him, I want you to go back 5 years or 6 years and put into an email system like, do you know MailChimp?
Yep.
Or Constant Contact or Get Response. I want you
Yeah.
to go and get your every friggin' customer that you've ever had for the last 5 or 6 years and put him or her into a CRM, a customer relationship management system. And that can be as simple as just putting them, you know, it turned out he had 4,700 email addresses. He didn't even know that. So I said, you got 4,700 email addresses. So what you first thing you're going to do is you're going to start sending out a quarterly newsletter, not monthly or weekly. He doesn't have the bandwidth for that, and nobody wants to hear from him. You want to hear from a mini storage guy every week? I don't think so. So I said, I want you to do a summer, you know, fall.
Me.
Yeah, me neither. Winter, and I want the newsletter. I don't want it to be salesy at all. I just want it to be, you know, full of fun stuff. And cool stuff, and not very long. And so he put together his list of 4,700 emails, and about 1,000 of them were duds. You know, people change their email addresses as often as they change their clothes. So he ended up with about 3,500 active email addresses, and he started sending out newsletters, just very, very easy stuff. You know, hey, there's this new thing I read about, and I thought you'd be interested in it. Here it is. And remember me, signed Bill. And then after a couple of newsletters, about 6 months went by, he invited them to a webinar. He said, I'm expanding, and if you're interested to find out more, if you've ever thought about being in the mini storage business yourself, you know, you're welcome to join the webinar. It's free. He got about 70 people who came to that webinar, and I helped him with the webinar. And we pitched them on investing in his business, and he raised about $3.5 million in 6 weeks. Right? Because these people really like the mini storage business, but they don't, a lot of these people have money, but they don't have time. And the minimum investment was $100,000. And we had, I think we had 27 or 28. He said, oh yeah, I'll do that. And he's a very good operator, and he's expanding, and he's profitable. And, you know, it gets the investor a pretty good return. And there's a lot more. We're not going to have time today to go through all of this. But what I wanted you to do is I want you to think about every single person that you've come into contact with, you know, who's been a customer of yours, where you've done work for them. You know, and one of the great sources of leads is your accounts payable. Anybody that you have hired and paid money to, an HVAC guy, a plumber, an electrician, doesn't matter, an accountant, all of those people that you've given money to are potential investors. So your source of leads is your clients and your suppliers. Am I making any sense?
Absolutely.
So, and my CRM, my customer relationship management system, is incredibly stupid. You know what it is? It's a spreadsheet. That's all it is. Listen, if I were working in a big organization, that wouldn't work. But I'm going to show you my stupid CRM. It couldn't be any simpler. It could not. So I'll just share the screen here. And it's just, this spreadsheet I started in October of 2015. And it's got 6,494 lines. And each one has one or two, sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 email addresses. So I probably have about 16,000 email addresses in here. This is one I added today. Can you see this at the top of my screen here?
Yep.
This guy, his name is Vance Balling. There's his email address. And he contacted me today because he would like to audit the pivot course. So you can see it's very, very, very simple stuff. And you can search this. If I hit Control F, it shows this. Can you see that? Control F.
Yep. Yep.
It gives me this. And so let's see if I can find Rick Redel in here. There we are. So Rick Redel, I've got your phone number in here and this, and you're highlighted in pink. That probably means something. Yeah, it means that you were part of, I think, the pivot group. Okay, so this is not a real CRM, but it's my CRM, and it works perfectly well. So, plus on top of that, I use get response. So everybody who's in this spreadsheet is also in get response. So in get response, I'll have the pivot group, I'll have the ninja group, I'll have my realtor clients, I'll have my coaching clients, And so if I want to send out a newsletter, I can send it out to about 16,000 people, and it takes about 20 minutes of my time. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to, at least at a minimum, start a spreadsheet like this, so you have every single contact, everybody you've ever talked to. I talked to Bruce Firestone, he's my coach, here's his email address, here's his cell. Try and get cell numbers, because work phone numbers are useless. When was the last time you actually called somebody's office and actually got to speak to them?
Yeah, I don't even hardly try.
If somebody gives me their work number, I say, no, it's okay, I won't take that. Why not? Because if I call it, I won't get you, will I? Oh, well, no, I won't. Don't lie to me. So you give me your cell phone number, because I can text that number, or I can call you if it's urgent. Give me your email address. That's all I need. So I collect names, cell phone numbers, and email addresses. And then in that spreadsheet, I'll say, oh, Rick Redel, here's his phone number, his cell number, his email address. Was he in the pivot course? Did he do some coaching with me? Just some other and then with a Control F, I can search it. And then you're going to put these people into an email program at some point. Maybe it'll be Constant Contact or Get Response or MailChimp. There's probably 1,000 of them, I don't know. But initially, you don't really need that. So I'm going to tell you another little secret. You have a spreadsheet. Big pardon?
Oh, just give her. Yep.
Just give her. So you have a spreadsheet, and you say you have 300 email addresses in there, or 400 email addresses in there. And believe it or not, I will email 200 people individually. I will. So what I'll do is I'll say, hey, Rick, I'm launching a new newsletter, which I actually am. It's called Burning Rock Solutions. Think about my last name, Firestone, Burning Rock. Yeah. So I'm actually going to launch a newsletter next month called Burning Rock Solutions. You'll probably get an email from me. And I'm giving you all my secrets, so please don't hang me out to dry. But so I will have, hey, hi Rick, it's Bruce here. You know, I'm launching this really cool newsletter. It is a paid subscription service. It's called Burning Rock Solutions. This is what it does. If you're interested, I'll send you some more information on it, and I hope all is well. I'll send that to you. Then I'll go in my sent file. I'll forward that and take out all the all the auto formatting, and then I'll put in Brad Karche. And then all I have to do is go into that email and say, instead of saying, hi, Rick, I say, hi, Brad. So I change one word and out it goes. So the problem with Constant Contact, MailChimp, and GetResponse, and all those other programs is that when people get a mass email from me or from you through that system, they know it's a mass email. And when I send out a newsletter, I get about 34 to 40% who open, which is a very, very high number. So if I send out 16,000, I'll get 4, 5, 6,000 people opening it, which is great. But it's still only 30 or 40%. Most newsletters, they get a 5% open rate. It's very poor. But if you do this little trick that I talked about, where you sit down and you do 200 emails where you're forwarding each one, but you take out all the auto formatting, so it looks like you've sent out an individual email. That instead of taking 20 minutes will take 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
But the response rate on that is something like 98%.
Huh. Wow.
And so if you were inviting people to a webinar where, me as your coach, if you wanted me on the webinar, we're pitching them for real estate investment in MMI, then each one of those people could potentially be worth $100,000 to you or more. So spending 3 hours or 2 hours doing what I just described to raise, $500,000 or $1 million, to me, 3 hours is not wasted. It is not.
Pretty good rate.
And I'm telling you, if you had, say, 350 people that you've worked with in the past, or they worked for you, or you worked for them, in that, and you say, look, I've got this really awesome business model that I've been working on with Prof. Bruce in Ottawa. I'm going to have a webinar coming up. Would you like some more information on it? Because it's really cool. And you give them a couple of little shots as to what it is, without doing the whole striptease. I'll bet you get a 98% open rate, and you probably get a third of them who'll say, yeah, send me more information, maybe even half. And then of those half, maybe half of the half will show up. And if you have 20 or 30 people who show up, or 70, and they each are worth $100,000, you can raise a lot of money that way. It friggin' works. I've done it hundreds of times. I've got clients all over Canada, the United States, who are doing it. So this is the way to, in my opinion, to raise money. And I think it's more successful than anything else out there. We can't raise $100 million this way. We cannot. But we could raise 2 or 3 million that
way. Right. So I guess one of the things that Dave talks about on that one is getting offside with the SEC. Is it?
Yep.
There's no issues there.
So you are not allowed, for example, to put an ad on Facebook or Kijiji saying, hey, come to my webinar. I've got a great investment for you. You cannot do that. That's a public pitch. But you can send private emails to your own friends and contacts saying, look, I'm going to do an information webinar. You're not asking for money in the email. You're just saying, look, I've got this really great business model I'm working on, and it's called MMI, and it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for people to be their own gigpreneurs, to find a micro workshop. And it's just an awesome model. I've been working on it, like I said, with Prof. Bruce, and I'm going to have a really great 1 hour webinar. If you want more information, I'll send it to you. You don't even send them the Zoom link or anything like that. You just send them out there. Something else, did I send you? Right. Did I send you the book review I did on Lauren Claff's book called Pitch Anything?
Yes. Yep.
Did you actually do that? Did you look at that?
I haven't. I actually just looked at it yesterday and said, man, I got to watch that.
You should, because what I would like you to do is, you know, I'm going to download this to my computer. I'm going to upload it to YouTube, and I think you should go through the whole thing. I know it's 2 hours, but you should go through it again, because there's a lot of stuff that we've done in this 2 hours, a lot of homework for you. And one of the things I cannot do, Rick, is I cannot keep track of what you have to do. You have to keep track of what you have to do. Because I just couldn't do it. I mean, I can't do that. I'm not your boss. I'm your coach.
Well, I'm a big boy now.
You're a big boy, and I believe in you. But there's quite a bit of homework in this last 2 hours. You need to do it all, because if you leave one of the elements out, it could be a crucial element. And I think investor money, if you had $500,000 of investor money in your bank account, you would have more confidence going into this model than if you have $50,000 in your bank account. It's just, you know, money talks and you know what walks, right?
Yeah.
You know the expression, money talks and bullshit walks?
Yeah.
You know that expression, money talks and bullshit walks? Yeah. Well, that's an old one. But that's true. So I'm going to send you this investor thing, how to find investors. It's 24 pages. I need you to read this stuff. I need you to do the simple CRM, like the spreadsheet. I need you to think about how to pitch anything. I need you to do all of that stuff, plus all the other stuff that we've talked about for 2 hours. The other thing I need you to do, and you asked me this in your agenda, is how to hold yourself accountable. That is something I can do. So I expect in the next couple of weeks, you're going to send me a mid-month report and say, Bruce, this is all the stuff that I've been doing. This is the stuff that I haven't done yet. And I'm going to comment on it. That's a very important thing. I don't want you to go away. I don't hear from you for a month.
Yeah.
Okay. So the mid-month report is really important. So I think we've done a lot of good work today. I'm going to send you the how to find investors. I'm going to digitize your business model. I'll send you that too. And tomorrow expect a replay of the YouTube video we did today.
Yeah, that sounds great, Bruce. This is awesome.
It was fantastic. It's always good to talk to you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. I'm pumped.
Me too.